Hello and welcome to the BTS Career Zone. If you're new to the Career Zone, this is a place in which you can access study plans, articles, and webinars just like this one on all things to help you build your career in financial services. My name is Nikita Phillips, and I'm a candidate support and business development advisor for Bespoke Training Solutions. In this episode, I am joined by a special guest, Luke Mapley. Luke is a qualified financial advisor based in Guernsey, and Luke has recently passed his AF8 Retirement Income Planning Unit using the BTS support materials to help him. We're hoping that this video is going to give you some real insight into the experience of sitting the AF8 unit, along with some hints and tips to help you tackle this unit successfully in the future. Before we get started, I will just provide an overview of AF8 for those unfamiliar with the unit. AF8 is a level 6 unit in which the CII recommend 150 hours of study. It is worth 30 credits and it is a coursework only module assessed by way of 3 written coursework assignments. Assignment 1 must be submitted within 3 months, Assignment 2 within 6 months, and Assignment 3 within 9 months. Many candidates feel that there is limited support out there for this unit, predominantly due to the CII plagiarism rules. However, at BTS, we are here to support you as much as we can with this unit. So if you have any queries about the support that we can provide, please do feel free to reach out. My first question for you, Luke, is around what your initial thoughts were about AF8 and what made you choose AF8 over the other units that were on offer.
Yeah, sure. So I'm working through my advanced diploma. So I recently passed AF6, which is the other coursework-based unit that CI offers as part of that diploma. And it was kind of a case of I could either carry on down that route or maybe switch to something like AF1 or AF4. I liked AF6 and I found it okay, so I kind of felt that I wrongly felt that I'll be fine with AF8. It should be quite straightforward and certainly more appealing than the very technical aspects of the nature of like AF1 and AF4. So chose AF8, very quickly realized it's not quite as easy as I thought it was going to be. But yeah, sort of worked through it over sort of a 12-month enrollment period.
Perfect. Okay, so you went into it feeling quite confident then, having passed AF6 quite easily.
Yeah, I wouldn't say F6 was easy, but I passed all, so there isn't really any, I don't think there's any guidance for AF6 out there. So I just had used the CII material for AF6, passed all 3 assignments first time with a reasonably comfortable margin. So I kind of went into AF8 thinking, I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm just going to use CI exemplars. I'd be absolutely fine with assignments 1, 2, and 3. Got through assignment 1, scraped through it, but then very quickly hit a brick wall with assignment 2 and realized, oh, I'd need a bit of extra help here. And that's kind of what led me to sort of looking for materials like BTS and start to work through that unit.
If anything, what did you find easy about AF8?
Not a lot. It's quite tough. It's tough, but it's very achievable. I guess if anything, the easier bit is I don't know, like if it's the fact it's coursework based, so there's no real time pressure like with an exam. So for example, like if you have an onshore bond, investment bond, and you have a complex top slicing calculation or something, or a calculation for a unit trust, with AF8, you have the luxury of you can go online, you can look up the steps, you can follow it and do everything, all the research you need to do to get the right answer. If you have that sort of calculation come up in AF1, for example, you can't do that. You're relying on your brains and sort of the research you've done before the exam. So I guess I wouldn't say so easy, but different is just being able to look at the question, take a step back and think, okay, how am I going to tackle this rather than seeing the clock ticking down like you do with most other exams.
Yeah, okay. So essentially you haven't got that same time pressure. There is a time element to some extent, but you do have the time to go away, do your research, and get that put into your assignment. And one of the common myths that we hear about this unit is that it is just a pensions unit. Are you able to bust that myth for us and let us know if that's true?
Yeah, sure. It's a retirement unit, so there's definitely some pensions in there, but no, it's not just a pensions unit at all. And I probably thought that. I think I fell foul of that myth of I kind of assumed it'd be similar to AF7 in a way, like you're just dealing with pensions and how you can draw the retirement benefits from the pensions. And there is a bit of that in there, but if anything, I would say AF8 is very similar to AF5 in the sense of it's quite broad in terms of the syllabus. You get given a fact find when you enroll for AF8, which looks identical to the fact find you get for AF5 in the way it's laid out. My particular clients, they did have obviously had pensions, but we also had investment bonds, we had unit trusts, we had lots of other things to deal with. And I actually, for my assignments, I spent more time dealing with their investments than I did their pensions. So sort of prior knowledge of RO2 and 3 is probably quite beneficial going into this unit. And I guess the main difference between AF8 and 5, other than the fact one's an exam, one's coursework, is whereas AF5 you might get your young couple, I think AF8 probably is leaning more towards your maybe 50-year-old clients who are sort of a few years away from retirement. So that's where the retirement theme comes in. But otherwise, I'd say it's a very broad unit. It's definitely not just a pensions unit. I can definitely bust that myth.
Perfect, because that's something that a lot of candidates go in feeling overly confident, only to realise that they're going to have to improve their knowledge in different areas. So it's great to get that myth busted. You've already gone into a little bit about using the BTS material and deferring your success. So can you tell us a bit more about what led you to using the material overall?
Yeah, of course. So I passed assignment 1. So I started AF8, passed assignment 1 on my own, and that was just through the exemplar that CI gives you a bit of trial and error. I don't really know what I was doing with assignment 1. Looking back, I have no idea how I passed it, but I did. I sort of scraped through it. When I then got to assignment 2 and read the question, I honestly didn't understand the question, and that's when I kind of looked at if I just go for this, there is no way I'm going to pass this assignment without getting some extra help. So BTS, one of the sort of the very few providers that are actually offering any support with AF8. So I downloaded your coursework material and sort of the support that you gave. It helped me understand what the question was actually asking me and the sort of things to think about.
Yeah.
And I then used it for assignments 2 and 3, kind of helped me get through the final 2. Looking back, I wish I'd used it for assignment 1 because there's so many easy marks that I've missed on assignment 1. I didn't use a cash flow forecast. I hardly used any references. So many easy marks that knowing what I know now, could have picked up.
Yeah.
And all of those things obviously covered in your training materials, which are great.
In terms of referencing, so it's something you've got to do. It's something that some candidates are concerned about. So how did you find referencing with this particular unit?
Start with I struggled. So again, you have to reference for AF6. So I kind of understood the concept. But for AF6, I'd only ever got B's and C's, which are 3 to 4 marks. With assignment 1 of AF8, I got a C. So that was 3 out of 5 marks, I think. But looking back, I hardly use any references. I didn't really know what I was meant to reference. Got to grips with it, having looked at the training materials. I then got to grips with it with assignments 2 and 3, and end up getting A's for both of those, so the full marks available. I think the key with referencing is, it might sound daft just say you just got to do it, but you have just got to do it. And to the point where literally any website that you use, any CII textbook, any calculator, any fact sheet, literally any bit of information you look up, to support you with your AF8 assignment, just reference it. And it gets to the point where it almost feels like, God, this is overkill. The examiner's almost going to either laugh at me or think I'm cheating, because I'm using about 4 or 5 references for one piece of information or one sort of sentence.
Yeah.
But that's what I ended up doing for sums 2 and 3, and that's when I got A's to maximize the marks. And when I know when I sort of was looking back, speaking to other candidates, and kind of started trying to pick up the marks referencing, I was being told you need about minimum of 30 to get an A.
Right.
On my, I think it's on my assignment 2, I submitted 38 references. I thought, I've got this. Kind of that's gonna be an A, and I got a B. So I kind of couldn't understand why. Managed to get it up to sort of 45-ish references, kind of for the next assignments, and that's when I started to get an A.
Right.
I'm guessing it's kind of 40 to 45 references is the magic number that you need to get the maximum marks available.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd say, just in summary, it is very achievable. Your training material is really good. It tells you how to do all the referencing, the sort of things you should be using. But my advice on that is just literally, whatever you look up, no matter how small it is, just reference it.
Perfect. Obviously, like if you've got a chargeable gain calculation, you can use up the CII textbook that you've used to get that calculation. You can use up a calculator that you found online. So it's just thinking about every little thing that you can add into that just to get the maximum marks. And with this particular unit, it could be in the difference between a pass or a fail, couldn't it? So it's something that candidates have really got to not underestimate. And 5 marks might not seem like a lot, but when it's between passing that unit or deferring your success, you really need to pay attention to the referencing side. On top of the referencing, there is a word count restriction for each assignment. So did you find that word count was generous, or was actually sticking to that part of the challenge?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it's one of the hardest things, especially in assignment 3. But I think with AF8 in general, I think word count's one of the biggest challenges. So for assignments 1 and 2, you have 2,500 word count plus 10%. So that's
right.
2750, I think.
Yeah.
and then for assignment 3, you have 3,000 plus 10%, so 3,300, which sounds like a lot. And I remember when I started this, and I had exactly the same with AF6, I was thinking, whoa, how am I ever going to get that many words? But if anything, I think for my assignment 3 of AF8, I was on about 7,000 words by the time I finished writing it. Wow, so I was over, so I was over, like, way over double the words I needed. And I was thinking, then the challenge I had was, wow, what do I take out here? What's kind of the lowest scoring marks, and where do I cut back? So I think it is a challenge, but there are some ways you can be smart about bringing the word count down. I would say that for word count, with AF8, you're going to get most of your marks on the why you're doing something rather than the what you're doing. So my assignment 3, for example, which is where you have to write a report about how the clients can take an income throughout their retirement. I know on my first attempt, which I didn't pass, I spent so much time detailing all the maths and what they were doing, I'd hardly left myself any word space or word count available to say why I'm recommending it.
Right.
So I would say one big thing is focus on whys rather than whats, because that's where you're going to get most of your marks. Abbreviations, so things like group personal pensions, you could shorten to GPP. Stocks and shares ISA could be S and S ISA. There's a few easy ways where you can reduce the number of words you're using. And like, for example, if you write group personal pensions 20 times in your assignment, which might sound a lot, but I did, and then you shorten that, so you write group personal pensions, then brackets GPP on the first attempt, so you can show the examiner what you're doing. But then if you just write GPPs for the rest of your assignment, do that if you do that 10 times, you will save yourself 20 words. And that might not sound a lot, but if you do the same thing for stocks and shares ISAs, attitude to risk, capacity for loss, anything that you can sensibly abbreviate, you can quite easily save yourself sort of 50 to 100 words, and that could be used towards giving yourself more reasons why or other content you can put in there. So that's something you can do, and the appendix as well. For AF6, I didn't touch my appendix at all. I just split everything in the main body of the word count. But for AF8, because there's so many calculations, so many supporting things you're going to need to put in there, anything that you don't think is going to directly give you marks, put it in the appendix, because then the examiner can see it, but you're not using up precious word count. So again, as an example, for assignment 3, where you're telling your client from retirement date of 2028 or whenever it is, I'm recommending you draw an income through X, Y, and Z. What you would normally do at the start of that assignment is detail what changes you've made in assignment 2 leading up to assignment 3. Rather than putting that as the first 100 or so words in your word count of your assignment, because you're not going to get any marks for that, put that in your appendix. And that, again, is just an easy way of showing the examiner, this is what you've done, it's clearly there, and you can see your starting position, but I'm not using up any valuable word count that I need to be using for the assignment 3 content. So in summary, it's tough, but again, if you're smart, kind of do a few different sort of things, which again, BTS are really good at. That's one of the things I really liked about your guides, how the word count hints and tips are kind of broken down. It's definitely achievable to get all the information you need for a pass in the word limit that there is.
And moving on then, Luke. So it's a 12-month enrolment period. You've got assignment 1 due at 3 months. Assignment 2's got to be submitted by 6 months, and assignment 3 submitted within 9 months, is my understanding. Did you find that was enough time? And did you feel that you had more than sufficient time to get all of your assignments submitted? Or was that actually challenging as well?
It is enough time, providing you crack on as soon as you've started. I think so. I've spoken to quite a few AF8 candidates throughout my time doing it, and I've heard quite a few over the time say, "Oh, I'm submitting my assignment 2 with 2 days to go," for example. So I mean, they're like absolutely pushing the time limit. But the challenge with that is, if you don't pass your assignment the first time round, you don't have any time left to resubmit. So you're absolutely right. So you got assignment 1 3 months, assignment 2 6 months, assignment 3 9 months. And then you've got a further 3 months at the end, like grace period, to help with any resubmissions. But that's plenty of time, providing you start right at the beginning. I started my assignment 1 literally on the day I downloaded the course. And I only completed my last attempt at assignment 3 at month 11. So even though I, in my mind, didn't dilly-dally, I just got on with it, I used nearly the full 12-month enrollment period to get all 3 assignments over the line. So I would say 12 months, it's lots of time, providing you're disciplined and you just keep going, but don't fall into the trap of, oh, past assignment 2, I'm going to give myself a few weeks off, and then wait, because all it takes is for you to fail an assignment, or just life to get busy, because obviously we all have lives outside of CI exams. All it takes is for something to come up, and you might wish you'd started an assignment a couple of weeks earlier.
Yeah.
I think as long as you keep going and keep the momentum going, it is plenty of time.
Perfect. Well, that's great, because like you say, you get candidates that go, oh, 12 months is more than enough time, but they don't actually take into account that the time it takes back to get that assignment from the examiner makes up part of that 12-month period, and it can take quite a long time to get that back. So it's something that people need to be mindful of, isn't it, going forward? Don't look at 12 months and think you've got plenty of time. Just get started straight away, because you need to give yourself enough time for those resubmissions should they be required. I understand that you paid for a remark. So we get a lot of feedback from candidates that say, I don't know if they go for a remark. I don't know if it's worth the money. Did you find that it was worth the money? And what made that feedback different from the generic feedback that you get when you receive your assignment back from the examiner?
Yeah, so I did pay for remark on my assignment 3. So my assignment 1, I passed it first go, albeit just. Assignment 2, I failed it on the first go, but the generic feedback you get, essentially what happens is, if you don't pass an assignment first time, The CI give you some free feedback, which is they kind of stick blue labels around your assignment, and it'll say something on the lines of your solution is not tax efficient, or your solution is not sustainable. So it's very generic, but what they normally do is stick it on the point of your assignment, all the words where you need to look at. So they aren't giving you the answer, but they can kind of point you in the direction of which bits aren't quite good enough, need a bit more work. With my assignment 3, I'd failed it the first time, but then what the CI did with the generic feedback, rather than sticking it on the points of my assignment where I needed to focus on, they just shoved it all at the bottom. So I didn't really understand what bits were wrong. I just assumed, I meant, okay, that's the whole assignment. So I rewrote the whole thing essentially and completely changed the recommendations, submitted my second attempt, and I'd failed again and got the same mark. So I was like, oh, for goodness sake, I didn't really know what to do. I was only 4 marks away from passing, but I just didn't know where to make up those final marks.
Right.
I'd heard that the remark process wasn't really much use and don't bother with it. I thought, well, I've only got 1 more attempt here. I've passed sums 1 and 2. I don't want to fail at this final hurdle and it all go to waste. So I thought I might as well use as many resources as possible available to me. So I paid for the remark. Like you mentioned earlier, it takes a while to come back. But after 5 weeks, I got sent it, and it's essentially a Word document that you get that's personalized feedback to your assignment. So it's far more comprehensive than the generic feedback you get free. What the CI do, they elaborate on the blue point, on the blue sort of tickets that they put saying not sustainable, not tax efficient, whatever it is. They elaborate more on those points. So they actually use some of the words in your assignment. They tell you kind of this particular part doesn't quite add up or whatever it may be, even though they don't give you the answer. So it's a lot more detailed than the generic feedback. But the bit I like the most about it is that they actually tell you what you're doing well in your assignment as well. So rather than doing what I did between attempts 1 and 2 and basically rewriting the whole thing, when I read my personalized feedback, it was a 3-page Word document, and the whole first page was basically about 8-9 bullet points saying this was really good, don't change it. And I was able to work out, well, hold on a minute, of my 3,000 words, actually the first 2,000 is fine. I don't need to touch that. And I was able to then focus my energies just on the specific points that the CIA said you might want to rethink this. And that was only 1 recommendation out of the whole assignment. So I think I had about 10, 12 bullet points of feedback to deal with. It was literally only a couple of hours. I was able to spend a couple of hours just correcting the points that CI had pointed out, making sure I covered every single bullet point. Resubmitted the assignment, and I got an additional 10 extra marks than what I had before, and that was enough to take it up to a pass. So in summary, yes, although I'd been told maybe the personalized feedback wasn't worth getting, I think it personally, in my experience, yes, it absolutely is. And they tell you what you've done well, they give you a lot more detail in what you've not done so well, and it can really help give you a much clearer pathway to get to that pass standard.
Perfect. No, thanks for that, Luke, because in our experience, it's not usually going to change your mark, because with your coursework, it's assessed by the first examiner and then it's moderated by a second examiner. So the chances of your mark actually being changed from that remark are unlikely. But if it means you're going to get more personalised feedback and you know what the next steps are, then it is going to be worth paying that little bit extra. So my next question for you, Luke, is around what you liked about the BTS materials and how the support assisted you in achieving your pass.
Yeah, of course. So with AF8, I think, like I said earlier on, I took on assignment 1 without any other extra support. So I just looked at the CI exemplars. I just kind of had a go. And I passed it, but it was very much a scraped pass. It was and when I looked at the sort of question for assignment 2, I very quickly realized that I don't really get the question, let alone know what the answer is. So I'm going to need to look for extra help. That's when I came across BCS. So you guys were one of the very few providers that was offering any support for AF8. And so I downloaded your training material. And what I liked about it was, as well as that helped me understand actually what the questions are asking, so I thought, okay, yeah, I kind of know which direction I'm going now with assignments 2 and 3. What I also liked, you almost had like a do's and don'ts as to what you should, sort of things you should be putting in the assignments and what sort of things shouldn't be going in the assignments. And I almost use it as a checklist, so that I was writing assignment 2 and 3 kind of whilst you sort of having the BTS material kind of there. And when I got to the end of each assignment, I just literally almost ticked off, right, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that. And then all the points that you don't want to have in there, that's not in there, that's not in there. And I knew that that's the point I was happy to submit the assignment. And when I went through the AF8 journey and I had the BTS material, that was the Mark 1 version. I think the original version that you guys had set up. And I know you've revamped it since then. So I'm sure, and I think you've added like technical refreshers and calculations and different things that I had to look up, but I had to do it myself, and I probably hadn't done since my RO2 and RO3 days. So I know they're going to be very helpful for candidates as well.
Sit exams, and a lot of the time we sit exams to get diploma or to get chartered. Sometimes we don't really think about whether the exam is adding value to what we do each day. So do you find that this unit has added value to what you do each day as an advisor?
Yeah, I'd say far more so than most other CI units I've taken. So if I go back to when I took my diploma, however many years ago it was, whenever you go through RO2, RO3, whatever it is, the CI always say, oh, make sure you do further reading to kind of supplement your studies and really understand the topic.
Yeah.
I never did that. I'm sure there's lots of other people out there didn't either. It was I was able to pass the exam using the CI materials, and that was, in my mind, I was doing that to get my diploma, which I needed for my job.
Yeah.
It was very much a means to an end rather than actually studying to improve my knowledge, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
AF8, you have to do further reading because that's where you get your references from. So you don't have a choice in the matter. And I've actually found by doing that unit, there's now so many websites, calculators that I'd use for my assignment that actually this is really good. I'm going to use this for my job, and that I still use today.
Right.
So from that perspective, I think because you have to do your wider reading outside the CI material, you can then use those sources and use that material to kind of as part of your day job going forward. So yes, I would say from that point of view, it is a helpful unit for the day-to-day job, certainly more than other CI units I've taken in the past.
Is it a unit that you would recommend to others? And if so, what approach would you recommend that they take going forward with this unit?
Yeah, I think when I was saying at the time, I'll be like, no, don't do it. It's horrible. When you're kind of stuck in it, especially after you've deferred success a couple of times, it can be quite downheartening, like any exam, if you don't pass it first time. But I think now that I have completed it, yes, I would recommend it. I think it's, especially if you're used to writing documents, writing reports, like if you're a power planner, for example, where writing suitability reports is your day-to-day, one of the assignments is write a suitability report. So actually, I think if you're used to the concept of writing financial information down for clients, then yes, it's a very achievable unit. I also think if you were looking to, for example, accelerate your advanced diploma, it's also potential to take AF8 alongside other units.
Right.
Like, for example, with me, if I were for your advanced diploma, you have to take 4 units, including AF5. So I can't remember the dates exactly, but I started AF8. I passed assignments 1 and 2, and I was starting to work on assignment 3. But I took a pause and took AF5 in the February 2023 sitting. And at the time, I was thinking, like, this is going to be way too much. It kind of, I'm going to fall down on one or the other. But I thought I'm just going to give it a try. But I think because there's so much crossover between the 2 units, and because I'd got ahead of the game and I've been kind of disciplined with AF8 and I submitted assignments 1 and 2 well ahead of time, I was able to kind of squeeze in another advanced exam. So whereas if I was taking like AF5 and AF1, for example. I think that would have been just too much because you got two very time-pressured exams with a really different syllabus. So I think if you're looking to accelerate your advanced diploma progression, then yes, I would say AF8 is one that you could do alongside other units. Or you could take some like level 4 or level 3 units while you're waiting for your results, because it does take ages to get your results back from the CII, and actually rather than sitting there doing nothing, you might be able to squeeze in a level 3 unit just to bolster the credits up. So I would say it's a tough, it's a tough unit, but it is achievable, and I would say it's definitely something worth considering if you want to get through your advanced diploma sooner rather than later, rather just having to wait for 6 month exam window like you normally do with the CI exams.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. So obviously the choice that we often get is for people that don't have degrees like myself, I need 4 exams, and one of those is going to have to be a coursework based. So what kind of made the difference between AF6 and AF8? Which one was your preferred particular unit? Which one added more value to what you do?
I would say they both add value in different ways. So for those that don't know, AF6 is it senior management and supervision, I think it's called. It's essentially like a compliance-based module. So for example, I am a director of Gower Financial Services, my employer, and I'm given 3 assignments. One was something on the lines of how would you deal with X, Y, and Z in the event of a further pandemic? One was about training and competence, and one was about corporate governance.
Right.
So I actually quite like that because I'm a bit of a nerd. I like all the compliance side of things. But it's really, really different to any CII exam I've ever taken. There's no pensions, no investments, no anything that you would think, oh, that's like what I learned in RO2, for example.
Right.
AF8 is far more like what you'd expect from a general CII exam. So you're absolutely right. You have to do the way the CI lay out their exams now, unless you can get recognition of prior learning from elsewhere, you're going to have to do one coursework module. So I would say if you like your compliancy side of things and want to try something different, then AF6 is a good option.
Yeah.
But if you like the financial planning side and want to stick with what you are familiar with, then AF8 is closer to the other AF or RO exams you may have done in the past.
What are your top 5 tips for this unit?
I've written these down just to make sure that I get right.
Don't worry.
Absolutely. So number 1, start early. So like we said earlier, it feels like plenty of time, but that time 12 months, but that time very quickly ticks down if you delay things. So as well as what I said earlier about just make sure you start the assignments as soon as you get them. One other tip I would add to that is don't read the CI book for AF8. Right. So I know it might be a controversial opinion, but what I did, I downloaded the CII AF8 module. Like I did with any other RO exam, I read the book first and then I started on the work. But the AF8 textbook, in my opinion, doesn't give you anything extra that you haven't already learned in RO2, RO3, RO4, and all the other things you've done in the past. So I would say start early, and what I mean by that is when you download it, you just start. So you start working on your fact finds and getting to know your clients, and you start your first assignment as quickly as possible. Number 2, I would say be smart with your word count. So we touched on it earlier on, but there's a few things you can do, and that's abbreviations. Be smart with your appendix and sort of what you put in there. And most importantly, focus on the whys rather than the whats, because why you are recommending something gives you far more marks, and you can link it back to the case study, than what you are recommending. So be smart with your word count. Second one. Third one, which you've not touched on it, is don't shy away from the tough subjects or calculations. So what I mean by that is, like, take my example was my assignment 2. My clients had, I think, an onshore bond and a unit trust, and the way they were set up wasn't tax efficient. It clearly, the CI wanted me to recommend or look at doing something better with those investments.
Yeah.
But I would have had to have done top slicing calculations. I would have had to have done unit trust, sort of partial surrenders, all these subjects. I think, whoa, I don't really like that. I'm going to stick with the really easy stuff that I don't have to work out these calculations.
Yeah.
And again, I passed assignment 2, but I only just passed it. And I think looking back, knowing what I know now, if I'd have been brave and tackled the bigger areas, like those sorts of non-tax efficient investments that are going to give you the big marks, I'd have passed by a far more comfortable margin than just skirting around the edges and recommending things that are a lot easier, but not actually going to make that much difference to my sort of client's lifestyle.
Right. Okay.
And when you get to assignment 3, you're going to have to tackle these things anyway. So I would say if you see something, you think, well, that just looks a bit much, doing all those onshore bond calculations, for example, just go for it. There's stuff online that can help you, and that's where you're going to pick up your marks.
Perfect.
Number 4, I would say if you defer success on an assignment, don't get too downbeat. So I've spoken to quite a few AF8 candidates while I was doing it at the same time, just we're sort of helping each other along. And of all the candidates I've spoken to, including myself, not one of us passed all 3 assignments first time.
Right. Okay.
And when you get your results, which take forever to come here, the CI don't do a very good job of sugarcoating it. You just see the word fail on the screen, and it's like with any failed exam situation, it's not a nice feeling.
Yeah.
But I think the difference with AF8 to something like AF1, AF5, AF4, rather than having to wait for 6 months to have another go, and then you have to start again with a brand new case study and a brand new set of questions, that's not the case with AF8. You've got another 2 goes for that assignment. So yes, it's not a nice feeling because you've put in all these hours and you haven't quite got there this time round, but actually you're going to get some feedback and you've got more time to have another go at it. So don't be too downbeat. Look at your feedback. If that feedback doesn't help, you can then purchase the personalized feedback, and just dust yourself off and go again. Because, well, say for my assignment 3, I know on my second fail, I was almost at that point of I was talking myself out of going back for it. And I thought, you know, I've done with this. I spent so much time in AF8 and I don't want to keep going. But I dusted myself down, had another go, and then finally got that pass that I was looking for.
Perfect.
And lastly, number 5, don't be afraid to ask for help. So I think one of the challenges with AF5 is, and you've seen, because the CII puts such strong rules and guidelines around, you mustn't talk to people, you mustn't share your assignments, they essentially almost tell you, it feels like you can't ask anyone for help, you are doing this on your own.
Yeah.
And it puts you off kind of looking things, talking to people, just sort of mapping out situations. And actually it can be a really lonely experience. And say trainers like BTS, although of course you can't help candidates with their specific assignments or case studies, of course you can't, you can help with generic calculations, you can help with generic topics, you can help with strategy and timings, and there's lots of things that you can do by talking to someone, lots of little pointers you can pick up without going near your own personal case study and fact find. So I would say my last tip really, and my most important one, is don't go it alone. Kind of, you can speak to trainers, you can speak to candidates that have done this in the past, and even if you just pick up one little hint or tip and you think, oh, I hadn't even thought about that, that could be, you could then apply that to your own case study, and that could be the difference between a pass or a fail. So that's my last one, is don't go it alone, don't be afraid to ask for help.
That concludes this video. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and we hope this was insightful and gives you a good starting point to begin tackling this unit. A big thank you also goes out to Luke Mapley from Gower Financial Services for taking time out of his day to help us create this webinar. If you want to purchase the AF8 support material, you can do so by heading to the BTS website. Or if you have any queries, you can drop us an email at inquiries@bespoketrainingsolutions.com. Best of luck with this unit, and we wish you the utmost success.